Oh, the power of conversation. When you have a conversation with someone, you can honestly solve any challenge. When you have a conversation with somebody and they are present, they're engaged, they're listening, and they have respect for you and that conversation, during that conversation, you can pretty much solve any challenge thrown at you. And this week, in JTInTheRaw, I'm going to give you a couple of examples this week where I've experienced powerful conversations. Conversations that have truly changed the way I see things. And I'm going to give you the 4 key ways for you to make conversation powerful. Welcome to JTInTheRaw, show 227. Show 227 will come to you the same time every single Friday, 8 o'clock Sydney time, whatever time that is anywhere around the world, where I chew the thin on business, and after 31 years in business, I have just a few thins to chew. So welcome everybody, it's a big day here for me. We have our JTInTheRaw in an hour. We launched the webinar series for the Australian Fitness Industry Technology Summit. We have our first webinar at 9 o'clock this morning. 10 o'clock I have a normal catch up with Dory. 11 o'clock I'm catching up with Emmett Williams from My Zone. And at 12:30 today, we have our very first face-to-face networking event for the fitness industry here in Sydney. Really looking forward to that. You can still RSVP for that. Of course, that's if you're watching live. If you're watching on replay, it's done, it's over. It was a great time. By the way, if you are watching on replay and you want to be able, and you are from the fitness industry and you want to catch up on the webinar that was on today, it was indeed free. Just put webinar in the comments below, webinar, and I'll send you the link and you can get the free link to the webinar today, which is on fitness technology and how it will help your staff, your members, and your clients. So yeah, big day. But then the weekend. So question of the day for people watching live or on replay is, what are you up to on the weekend? I want to know what you're doing this weekend in the comments below using emojis only. Good morning, Eugene. I'd like to know, Mira, good morning, in the comments below, what are you up to on the weekend using emojis only? Now that will test your creativity. All right, so let's talk about this thing called conversation. So in the world that we now live in, whether it's a good world or a bad world, it is uber connected with these things, with phones. And it's a lot easier to, I find, people find, you may find, to text people, to email people. And there's nothing wrong with texting, there's nothing wrong with emailing. But when you have a conversation, it is far more powerful. And I saw that firsthand this week with one of the round table groups that I work with. So in the US, I have a group called the Rex Marketing Roundtable. And for the last 7 days, we've had an email thread where we've been discussing cost per lead. Cost per lead on Facebook advertising, Google advertising, cost per lead. And to be honest, I was following that thread and almost getting lost with all of the data, the points that were being made. Someone would make a comment and then 2 other comments, and then the reply would be only on the top comment or the top question, not on there. Oh my God, it was so confusing. This week, I put it on the agenda to have that discussion, to have that conversation. And for around 37, 38 minutes, we achieved more, learnt more by talking and listening than we did in 7 days of emailing. Is that not a message for all of us? Is that not a message for all of us? We learnt more in 37, 38 minutes of conversation than we did in 7 days of email threads. Why is that? Why is that? It's because conversation is fluid. It's dynamic. I can make a statement, someone else can then ask a question on that statement. We are present, we are here, we are face to face. And in this uber-connected world that we live in, we are losing that ability to have conversation. We are losing that ability to ask questions, to probe, to dive deep. What we are relying on is non-emotional communication. It doesn't help us. The second example I want to give you, again at another Zoom call with my Rex group here in New South Wales, is we were talking about marketing. We're talking about lead generation. And we were talking about like the power of Instagram and what Instagram could do to help generate leads. Now that, of course, is a whole nother rabbit warren that we don't want to go down today. However, what we did discuss, again, in around about that 35 minute mark, was a complete strategy for single business operators in order to link in with other business operators to help them build their Instagram account, for add credibility to the personal trainer's Instagram account, and cross-fertilize followers. It was a fascinating conversation. There it is. Fascinating conversation. I can guarantee you this. Those business owners would not have walked away with the ideas and the actions if we'd been emailing, if we'd been texting. The fact that we were able to have a conversation, for us to ask questions, get greater clarification, the conversation is the piece. And this is the thing I really feel strongly about, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot beat talking to people. You cannot beat it when it comes to solving challenges. Yesterday, another example. This is my third example. And this is a more personal example. Is I was having a conversation with what we're calling a fitness business podcast fanatic, a brand new person. I don't even know Shay very well. But we had a conversation yesterday. And the conversation was fluid, it was dynamic. And he asked questions. He asked questions to get clarity on direction on one of his challenges or projects that he's thinking about working on. Now, this conversation actually went for about 45, nearly 50 minutes. But at the end of that 45 or 50 minutes, here is what he said to me. Thanks, JT. You've given me lots to think about and some clarity around what I need to work on. Thanks, JT. You've given me clarity and ideas on some of the things I need to work on. You get that from a conversation. As leaders of our business, as leaders of our department, as leaders of our sporting teams, as leaders of whatever we are leaders of, you cannot and must not shirk your responsibility to lead conversations. Conversations are where we unravel the crap that goes on these devices. I want you to think about having those conversations. Cam, good morning. And I see a couple of other people there. Good morning. The question of the day, by the way, everybody, is what are you up to on the weekend? Whether you're watching live or on replay, share it in the comments below using an emoji only. There's the challenge. I'm not sure anyone has done that as yet. Okay, so let's talk about this conversation. What does this conversation look like? Well, the success of any conversation is that it must be two-way. So ideally, there's at least two people there. If you're having a conversation by yourself, then you might get locked up. But seriously, with that conversation, it's got to be two-way. It's got to be one person speaking, one person listening, or multiple people listening, one person speaking, multiple people listening. The success of a conversation is one person speaks. Now that brings me to my very first tip to have a successful conversation, and that is respect. Respect for the person who is speaking. Respect for the person who is speaking. That means we don't talk over them. We don't cut them short. We allow them to completely finish their conversation or statements before we then add or ask questions. We do not interject. That's what respect is. Respect is letting the person speak. It is also respecting their opinion, respecting their views. That is a successful conversation tool. The second one is to be present. The second is to be present. Now, I'm not sure about you, but lots of the conversations I have are either on this phone or on Zoom. Now, let me tell you, the destroyer of fluent, positive conversation is Alt-Tab if you're on a Zoom call. Alt-Tab. So in other words, you're on a Zoom call, someone's speaking, and you Alt-Tab to check your Facebook feed, LinkedIn feed, check your emails. You are now not engaged. You are not present in that conversation. When you're on the phone, multitasking, sending emails. Again, checking socials. The success and the power of a conversation comes from being present. Tip number 1, or tip number 2, respect, present. Number 3, engage. You must engage in that conversation. And the thing that's going to tell me that whether you're engaged in the conversation with me is your body language. When you're going, nodding, oh yeah, good idea. The non-visual cues that you give off will indicate how engaged you are, or those visual cues will also say how non-engaged you actually are. I'm sure you've been on calls on Zoom where you've seen people's eyes doing this. And that's because they're reading emails instead of being engaged in that conversation. So engaged is critical to a successful conversation. Again, whether that's face-to-face or online. And the final tip for you is listen. Listen to what people are saying. When you're present and when you're engaged and when you respect the person that's speaking and the rules of them speaking, it does allow you to listen proactively. Me, when I'm on calls, this is my favorite tool. I write so much down so that I don't miss it. So I'm engaged and I'm listening. It's a powerful strategy that I would recommend. Ladies and gentlemen, conversations can solve challenges in your business. You just need to follow those 4 tips. You need to be present, engaged, listen and respect. Solving challenges will not come from text messages, will not come from emails, Snapchat, Facebook Messenger, Slack messages. Solving challenges will come from conversations. And I encourage you to teach your children to have conversations. I encourage you to teach your team to have conversations. And I encourage you to work with your fellow leaders and have conversations. Since COVID hit us in March 2020, since 2020, I've had more conversations with business owners and team members than I probably had in my first 15 years as a business coach consultant. But I'm also sure every one of those conversations helped in some way, shape or form more than an email or a text message. In fact, I'm pretty positive on that. You simply cannot beat talking to people. That is my theme for today. My theme is having a conversation with your team in the next week. Now, if you got any value out of today's show, please hit the share button wherever it is on whatever device you're watching. If you got value out of the show or you think you know someone that could get value out of the show, feel free to tag them in the comments below. It then pops up on their newsfeed and they can check it out. Maybe you want to talk to them and say, hey, check out this JT in the Raw where he talks about conversations and the power for us to solve challenges in our business, in our sporting team, or indeed even in our lives. I hope this resonates with some people. If it does, hit me with a love heart right now. I saw Eugene, I think you were love hearting me up just a few minutes ago. I really appreciate everybody tuning in to JT in the Raw. I'm grateful for that every single week. I'm here to help you, and I just share the lessons that I've learned during the course of the week of my job that hopefully makes your job and your life a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, and makes you a bit happier. Thanks for tuning in to JT in the Raw. I'll be back same time next week. Catch ya on the flip side.